Okay, I don't know why I forgot to do this the other day, but on Wednesday, you remember last week I gave you these little Philippians 4, 6, and 7 things? And I told you I was going to ask on Wednesday how it went. Did it go okay? Did this make a difference? I mean, the one I wrote down, I took it home and I prayed about it for 2 days and then I forgot all about it. Did it happen to anybody else? Well, guess what? If something was causing you a little anxiety and after 2 days of praying about it, you forgot about it, guess what that tells me? That you quit being anxious about it. So the cure arrived, so you didn't have to circle all the days on the page. Is that slick or what? And you thought you were in trouble for not finishing the sheet? No, it was a success. How cool is that? Philippians 4, 6, and 7. What a marvelous way to start your day if something's making you anxious. Okay, the other thing is back on page 97 where it talked about subliminal perception. I wanted to give you there's a couple of things. There's on the internet. One thing is Sedan, right? Gotcha. One thing is a guy, Science and Pseudoscience Review in Mental Health. I found this on the internet, an update on subliminal influence. And these guys say, what's happened in the area of subliminal influence in the 8 years since we wrote our review for Skeptical Inquirer? And it said, recent scientific evidence continues to support our original appraisal that actions, motives, and beliefs are not susceptible to manipulation through the use of briefly presented messages or directives, i.e. subliminal influence. If anything, the case against subliminal manipulation is stronger now than ever as a result of some recent research that was designed by a guy named Anthony Greenwald. And then they go on to say, we wish we could end this update on a happy note and state that the hysterical claims for the power of subliminal influence have finally been laid to rest. However, we noted in our reviews that interest in subliminal influence is often cyclical. These include a general lack of scientific, it says it first appeared about the turn of the century, then again in 1950, then again 1970s, and again in 2014. And the underlying reasons for this interest remain, including a lack of scientific literacy. People just don't know what science is all about. Confusing unconscious perceptual processes with the psychodynamic unconscious, a mass media interested in ratings and the sensational, and a desire for quick solutions to difficult problems and quick scapegoats when the quick solutions don't work. So there's a scientific assessment of this stuff. Okay? Now, I found another one. How to subliminally influence people. Would you like to know how to do that? You don't want to know how to do that. Now, listen to their definition of subliminal influence. Subliminal influence is all about persuading people to make decisions based upon subtle messages, gestures, or images that they might not be aware of. So see how they give a broader definition than what these guys are giving. They're saying it's just influence people in a way that they maybe aren't even aware of it. And number one, frame an idea or a conversation with emotional words. To do this, think of words or phrases that might strike an emotional chord with your peers. For example, oh, you know what makes today feel so dreary? I come outside and I see this weather and it just makes me feel tired. Anyone know what I'm talking about? But we can't let the weather get us down, can we? So then I proceed to say something. See how I make an emotional connection with you? And then I turn a corner and you're following me around the corner to where I go next. And if you know about this process, you can smile and say, I see what this guy's doing. He's connecting with me so he can lead me around the corner and take me someplace I don't necessarily want to go. Almost like the guy on the street trying to kidnap little kids who's offering them candy bars or want them to help him find a pet kind of thing. and the point is that these guys are saying this is how you can influence people. And the example they use is, okay, let's take an issue that's really controversial in the books anyway, in psychology, and that would be paddling children, spanking children. And watch how they would phrase it. I'm a loving father. Okay? I'm a loving father, and my children adore me. And I didn't spank them very often, but when it was necessary, I gave them a couple of swats when they were younger, and it made a difference. They had greater respect for the rules that they had broken as a result of that. And I did it because I'm such a loving father. You follow how you do that? Now let's do it the other way. I'm a loving father, and I care more for my children than anybody in the world. That's why I would never, never take a stick and hit them. You follow what happens? We're taking our premise and attaching it to some strong emotional words. And in fact, the way you can use this in everyday language, if you use emotional words that are negative, you probably aren't going to get people to move very close to where you're coming from, to your position. If you use emotional words that are positive, it'll draw more people in to listen to what you have to say. And knowing this, you can assess what, in other words, there are people out there in the world who read this stuff, who know about this, and they say, I know this is one way to influence people and have an influence in other people's lives. So it's just a matter of, when you talk about things, are you using positive words or negative words? In fact, they go on to say that avoid bullying and shouting if you want to have a subliminal, undetected influence over others. Well, if that's the case, then all of these people in politics today who are just yelling at each other apparently aren't trying to influence each other. They're just trying to out-yell the competition. They're not trying to reach some understanding or common ground. They're just goading each other on. Kind of like little kids on a playground. And what's going on in the world you're living in is there's a lot of older people who are not behaving as adults. Is that fair to say that? I mean, even from your perspective as a young person, that's not mature adult behavior to act like that. But if you're surrounded by it all the time and it becomes normal, what is possibly going to happen when you get to be that age? You'll be just as nasty and ugly as they are? You go, I hope not. Well, the way to change that is to say, I'm going to take a different approach. And Proverbs talks about some of that. So somebody's upset and angry and they're yelling at you. You just yell back. Give them some of their own. No, Proverbs says a soft answer turns away wrath. Grievous words just stir up the anger. And I don't know if you've ever tried that, but over the years I've done that, especially when I was a school principal. Can you imagine at one time in my life, I was a school principal and someone had to be punished at school, and it was severe enough that the teacher sent them to my office and I meted out some kind of consequence for what they had done. And they went home and told their parents about what happened at school, but they didn't. Do any of you know about how this works? But they didn't tell their parents the whole story. They kind of gave a lopsided report. Now, nobody in here ever did that, did you? Out of self-interest, you just didn't want to give the whole story. So the parent calls me and they're all upset. And they're just yelling away and I'm holding the phone away. And they say, are you still there? I said, yes, ma'am, I am. I'm taking down notes so I can address the concerns you have. And tomorrow when I get to school, I'll talk to everybody involved and I'll get back to you. Oh, well, thank you for that. See how it just kind of turns down the volume? And then I say, now, exactly what did your son say happened? And so I write down, I said, okay, tomorrow I'll take what he told you and see if the teachers have that same perspective on what happened. And then I'll just say, it could be that your son is not giving you the whole story. I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's just a possibility, but we'll find out tomorrow. And she goes, well, thank you very much. And I'll give you a call tomorrow when I get home from school to update you on what I discovered. And we'll do whatever it needs to be done to make it right, to where you're happy with it. She goes, well, thank you very much. Then when she hangs up the phone, what's the first thing she says to her son? I told him what you said. It better be the truth because he's going to check it out at school. And then she says what? If you lied to me. He goes, well, maybe I did leave a few things out when I was telling you what happened. Because he realizes he's going to get caught when the conversation comes to school. But that Proverbs passage, a soft answer turns away wrath, grievous words stir up anger. And by the way, that's another thing. If I want to have an influence on that lady, I don't get upset. I use a pleasant tone of voice. And I even say to her, in fact, usually after that happens, at the end she says, I'm sorry I got so upset and yelled at you. I said, hey, my children are young. They're still in grade school. I have an idea that when my children are teenagers and something happens, I'll be just as emotional about it as you are. See how I was kind of like almost excusing her behavior? I wasn't really, but didn't it kind of sound like it? Because I was saying, hey, I can identify with how you feel and why you're upset about this. And it's just a matter of using the kind of words that have an emotional tone. What you want to think about is, what's the emotional tone of the words that are being used here? And then you say, I'll use the kind of emotional words that draw people in, that cause them to listen, that maybe even get them to come around to my point of view. And that's another thing too, in terms of, and now see, this article said how to subliminally influence people. I'm just kind of generalizing on how to influence people. if I tell you something and you say, no way, I'm going, well, you know, maybe it's not that way. Just, but I think it might be. No way, you say. So tomorrow, I say the same thing to you. You say, no way. And I said, yeah, that's what you said yesterday. And the more I thought of it last night, the more I thought, maybe there's a grain of truth in this thing. You see what's happening? I keep coming back to you. You're way over here. No way, no way, no way. And with time and repetition, I can get you to the place to where you can say, well, that, you know, maybe there is some truth to that. And you don't even know you've made that transition because I've been so winsome about it. So emotionally positive about the whole thing. Okay, and the other thing they mention here, well, they mention about lead by example. I pick up a grandson after school. I take him. I say, so you want to get something to eat before you go home? Of course he does. Grandsons always want to get something to eat before they go home after school. And I said, what do you want to do? And he said, can we stop at McDonald's and get a cheeseburger? And I said, sure. And so we pull in there and he said, can I have a sweet tea too? And I say, sure. And I buy him a hamburger for $1 and then a big old jug of sweet tea for $1. And then I ask for a big glass of ice. And they give me the ice and I hand my grandson his sweet tea. Then I reach behind the seat and I pull out my Lipton tea that I bought at the grocery store for $1 for a 2-liter bottle. I've got a big glass of ice, same size cup as he has, and a 2-liter bottle of Lipton tea from the grocery store. I open the bottle and I pour some tea into the ice. How many big cups of tea that are full of ice will I get out of my 2-liter bottle? Anybody want to just pick a number and guess?
3.
3?
4.
4?
How big is the cup?
Okay, I'm thinking the cup, but what if the cup's full of ice before you pour the tea in it? Do you know how much tea McDonald's actually gave him when they filled the cup up with ice and then put it under the spigot for tea? The cup had about that much tea in it. So for my $1, I get about 8 big glasses of iced tea. So I paid $1 for 1 bottle. The ice is free, and I did that 8 times. And my grandson is paying $8 for the same thing from McDonald's sweet tea. What's your reaction to that?
That's why I don't get ice in my drinks.
What?
That's why I don't get ice in my drinks.
I'm sorry?
That's why I don't get ice in my drinks.
Ah, and in fact, when I order a drink, I often order it without ice and then ask for do you ask for a cup of ice on the side? I ask for a cup of ice on the side, and my wife goes, that's disgusting. And I'm saying, hey, it works, and you get a lot more tea, don't you, by not asking for ice in it.
At Sonic, for a while, they had like super iced coffee, but really what it was just like way more ice, and they only had like 3 sips of actual coffee.
That's right, that's right. There's a whole bunch of ice and a little bit of coffee in there. And they didn't put hot coffee in there either, did they, to melt the ice? They put cold coffee, and there's just a little bit of coffee in it. That's exactly what's going on. And you say, what am I doing? And then I talked to my grandson about what I'm doing, because I said, see, I get about, for the $1 I paid for this 2-liter, I get about 8 glasses of iced tea. He goes, oh, Poppy, that saves a lot of money. I said, sure enough, bud. That's what I'm all about, saving money. And I don't say a thing to him. Now, the next time we go to McDonald's and he orders a sweet tea again, I'll buy it for him. I mean, what do I want to do? Die someday and have my grandson say, my poppy was too cheap to buy me tea at McDonald's. No, I'm going to buy it for him. But then I'm going to pull my tea out, get a glass of ice, and teach him how this stuff works by simply leading by example. And the idea is that you're not lecturing them, you're not talking about it, you're just doing it, and they watch it, and they see, they learn. They're more apt to follow what you're doing by just watching you than they are for you to sit down and talk to them about it. Now, this is another one they mentioned that I don't know how powerful this one is, but it says, wear clothing that adheres to the way you want to be perceived by others.
That's true.
I mean, the way I dress will affect the way people respond to what I have to say.
Yeah.
So think about that. Because, see, that's the idea. Now, you say, I don't think they're even thinking about that. Okay, some people aren't even thinking about the way you're dressed. You go in for a job interview, they're thinking about the way you dress. But for a lot of people, they're not even aware of it. And if the people aren't aware of it, then that's what these guys are calling subliminal influence. Now, if we had the scientist in the room who wrote this article, and the guy in the room who wrote this one, this guy would say, well, he shouldn't call that subliminal because it's not really the science. This is the scientific definition of it. And see, this guy would want to argue about science, and this guy would say, you know, it's okay. I mean, I'll give you that. See, because he's going to practice this stuff. Okay, scientifically, I shouldn't have used that word. But if you look at the dictionary definition of subliminal, there's more than one definition for most words in the dictionary. Isn't there, class? Now, see, when I said, isn't there, class? See, I'm the guy over here that the scientist just exploded and told this guy how he was out to lunch, that this wasn't really science. And I say, yeah, but look at the dictionary and the different ways you can use words. I guess I'm offending him by using this word in too generic of a sense, and for that I apologize to the scientific community. But now see, watch what I say. But in spite of that, you can still use this information to influence people, and we could scratch out the word subliminal and it would still work. Now, who just won the argument? The scientist with all of his research, who's got the facts, or the guy who knows how to influence people? That's pretty scary, isn't it? I mean, it's powerful stuff to know when you're using it. And I'll just say this. I've had people say in this class, Dr. Bonine, I don't really think it's right to learn all this stuff so you can use to mess with people's lives and manipulate them. I don't think we should manipulate other people. Oh, should I try to influence somebody to come to know Christ as their Savior? Or should I just say, I'm not going to say anything. They're on their own. They'll have to figure it out. But the part of this that I think is really important is, if you don't know this stuff, you'll discover in life that people are using it on you, and you're not aware of how you're being manipulated. And as a teacher who's going to work with students, what's valuable at knowing this is I can have an impact on their lives, and I can do it in a way that's not so painful. And I'm not trying to hurt them. I'm not trying to take advantage of them. I'm trying to help them improve the quality of their lives. You follow what's going on? But so would someone who disagrees with me. Especially like if you're discussing the issue of abortion. I would say, I want you to know enough about abortion to know that people who have those, if they had this information, probably wouldn't have one if they could do it again, because it was such a traumatizing experience that the people who were promoting the idea didn't tell you about all the trauma. And I don't know if you've read any of that, but you probably ought to read both sides of those issues before you decide to terminate some young child's life. Okay, so that brings us up to date here, where we're talking about smell and stuff on page 115. Now, you don't know how bad I wanted to bring some pieces of stinky cheese, like the picture at the first of this chapter, to class and pass it around and make you all smell it. Yeah, it's like I just couldn't do that to you. That just doesn't seem like the right thing to do. So, we all know about our sense of smell because we use it all the time. When you're walking into the cafeteria, you might not be very hungry, but if you don't eat now, you don't get any food, so you go to the cafeteria to eat, right? And even if you're not that hungry, once you get to the cafeteria and start smelling the food, what happens?
You get hungry.
You get hungry, don't you? It's like, oh, all of a sudden I wasn't hungry, and now I am because I'm smelling this food. Unless you smelled something that you thought, what are they cooking in there? Roadkill? And you're thinking, I don't think I want to eat that. And then you get in there and say, oh, this is different. And some people do. They'll take food and smell it before they taste it. And this is another lesson I taught my grandson. I don't know why his mother did this, but she said, I know you don't like those beans on your plate, those lima beans or whatever, but I only put 4 of them there and I want you to eat them all. And when she went back in the kitchen, I said, hey bud, you know what you can do with those lima beans? Hold your breath, put it in your mouth, swallow it without chewing it up, and then take a drink of milk. And you'll never taste it. He goes, really? I said, really? I know, I used to do that in the cafeteria at school when they fed us stuff I didn't like. And I had to clean up my tray. So he took a bean, put it in his mouth, held his breath, swallowed it, drank some milk. Sure enough, never tasted the bean. He goes, wow. He takes another one. Before his mom gets back, he's got all 4 of them gone. And she comes back in and she goes, so what'd you do with your lima beans? And she looks at me and she goes, Dad, did you eat his lima beans? I'm going, no, the boy ate them. I watched him. He did? Yeah. Didn't you, bud? He goes, yeah, I did, Mom. I ate them. Then he says, may I have some more milk? Because he washed it down with milk. You can wash, how many love the taste of milk? You can wash anything down with milk. Okay, what do the rest of you? What liquid do you just love to taste?
Chocolate milk.
What?
Chocolate milk.
Chocolate milk? You could wash poison down with chocolate milk. What do the rest of you like to taste?
Like sweet tea.
What?
Sweet tea.
Sweet tea? Well, sweet tea will work for most things, but
Not everything.
not everything. But that milk, I don't know what it is about it, but it'll wash anything down. But if you don't like milk, you say, you know what? It's a toss-up. I don't like milk. I don't like lima beans. I'll just eat the lima beans real fast. Just don't bite into them. Just swallow them whole. Your stomach will take care of it. It's full of acid down there. Didn't we read that in the last chapter? It's full of acid. It's got so much acid in it that you have mechanisms in your stomach to put alkali in your stomach to counteract the acid that's digesting the food when it gets too much in there, working too hard on the food. So if you swallow a whole lima bean, the acid will attack it, and then once the acid has it all dissolved, the alkali will kick in and take care of your stomach. God's built your stomach in such a way that it can digest this stuff. Yeah, it's healthier. I mean, it'll go better if you chew it up and fill it with saliva and then swallow it. But if it doesn't taste good, just wash it down with some milk. If it doesn't smell good, here's what you do. If it doesn't smell good on page 115, maybe it doesn't taste like it smells. That's true with cabbage. You know what else that's true with? Fish soup. You've never smelled fish soup cooking on the stove? Well, it doesn't smell good.
Probably not.
But when you dip that stuff out and start to eat it, it tastes delicious. So sometimes you have to say, I just have to get past the smell, because it might not taste like it smells. I found another thing on the internet. I hope you're having as much fun on the internet as I do, looking at this stuff. Man, my collateral reading is so much fun this semester from the book I bought, and this internet stuff is so cool. So if you're not finding fun stuff, then I'll give you some. You can go look it up and count it for one of yours. 10 incredible facts about your sense of smell. People can detect at least 1 trillion distinct scents. So you could start making a list of all the different smells you can discern and distinguish. And apparently if you listed them all down, you could come up with 1 trillion of them. I don't have any idea who counted all of those. Now that's pretty amazing. What's the next one? Scent cells, the cells that smell things, are renewed every 30 to 60 days. The sense of smell is the only cranial nerve, the nerve that emerges from the brain and controls bodily functions, including eye movement, hearing, taste, and vision, that can regenerate. You can smell fear and disgust. I've heard that animals can, like a dog. If you walk in the yard and the dog comes out, roar, and if you're fearful, he'll smell it and bite you. If you stand there and say, come on, little puppy, go for it, and I'll see if I can kick your teeth out. I mean, I just talk right up, I get looking right in the eye and talk to him like, you want a battle? Let's do battle and see who comes out of this thing ahead. And I could put you out in a minute. And you'll be amazed at how they smell that sense of power, and they'll start backing away. And if they don't stand there and say, please don't bite me, doggy, please don't bite me. Just kick him as hard as you can. You've never met a dog that growls and bites. Well, I have. And the lady said, it's okay, he won't bite you. And as soon as I turned my back, he had a hold of the back of my leg. And when he did that, I took my other foot and just turned around with the heel of my shoe and smacked him right under the chin. Guess what he did? He let go of my leg and went running off somewhere. That's the way you handle a dog that bites. Number 5, women have better sense of smell than men. Now, see, all this stuff has value. That being the case, our little baby daughter gets sick and starts to vomit. And my wife is starting to gag because of the smell. Women have better sense of smell than men. I say, hey, let me have her, I'll take care of it. My sense of smell isn't as acute as yours. That also works for messy diapers. So, ladies, make a note of this. Down the road someday, when you're married and you have a stinky baby on your hands, you say to your husband, my sense of smell is much more acute than yours. Would you please handle this mess? And hopefully if he's had my class, I'll say, you guys, remember this when you get married, give your wife a break. It smells worse to her than it does to you. Okay. Well, that's the next one I have here. Number 7, this doesn't surprise anybody, does it? Dogs have nearly 44 times more scent cells than humans. 44 times more scent cells than humans. And it says here in the middle of page 115, humans have a paltry 5 million receptor cells devoted to the sense of smell, while sheepdogs have 220 million. Wow. Well, that's more than 44 times, isn't it? No, that's about right. Yeah, that's just about right. 44 times. 220 million cells. Yeah, a dog has 220 million cells. Number 8, loss of smell may signal the onset of an illness. You could be getting sick from something if you're not smelling very well. I don't mean if you don't have a good odor about you, but if your sense of smell is not working as well as it should. Which brings up number 9. Each human has their own distinct odor. So you go, oh, I wonder if my odor is appealing to men. I don't know. Don't shower for a while. Don't put on deodorant and see what happens. Say, no, apparently my distinct odor is less than appealing. I don't know how that works. I go out in the yard and start working around and get all hot and sweaty, and I come in the house and my wife goes, ew, go take a shower. I'm going, well, I'm still sweating. I'm going to sit down and relax a while till I cool off and eat a sandwich, then I'll go take a shower. And because of her acute sense of smell, she's going, whew, you need to take a shower. And I'm going, yeah, I smell that. Smells like hard work to me. It's the way it does. It's because I grew up on a farm where you worked hard and would sweat all the time. And this is pretty sad. But when we would go to town and haul a truckload of wheat to town, and at the end of the day, and we were all smelly, we thought it was so cool to they didn't have, well, they did have, Sonic was a drive-through restaurant, and so was A&W, but most of the places where you went, you had to go in and buy things, and we thought it was cool to walk into a restaurant, walk up to the counter and order something to eat and take it with us and smell the place up. And the people in town were so glad we didn't sit down to order a meal because they wanted to get us out of there because we were polluting the air. And it's just, and if you think people who are working on a farm smell bad, have you ever been around somebody who drives a truck that hauls pigs to market? You say, no, I've smelled the truck. Well, the guy who works with him starts to smell the same way too after a while. And it says a decline in smell may predict death within 5 years. Wow. Wow, how much fun was that? So let's see what it says here about smell. On page 115, it says, the last paragraph there, our sense of smell undergoes adaptation, much like the other senses. The guy running a pig farm, he doesn't smell it. Smells like money to him. It's not an offensive odor. Athletes, but you go out and play volleyball and you get on the bus to come home and someone who's not a volleyball player says, can I ride with you? And they get on the bus, they go, woo, I think I'm going to find another way home. This bus stinks. And you go, it just smells like volleyball. Football, any of those sports where you get active and sweat a lot. Okay. Bottom of page 115. How do we detect odors? How do we distinguish between the citrus scents of lemon and orange and the sour smell of spoiled milk? Our sense of smell is activated by complex proteins called odorant binding proteins. You know, the science of this stuff is just so cool, I think anyway. produced in a nasal gland as we breathe. A fine mist of this protein is sprayed through a duct in the tip of the nose and binds with airborne molecules that then activate receptors located high in each nasal cavity. Have I grossed you out yet? I mean, isn't this so cool to read about this stuff? In a patch of tissue called the olfactory epithelium. There you go. There's a picture of it on page 116. So now you know how it all works. And it says, again, numerous studies confirm that women generally have a better sense of smell than men do. Although, and that's generally true, but why is it that I can smell like we get some milk and we don't drink it up very fast, and I pull it out and I pull the cap off and I'm going, whoa, this milk is sour. And my wife goes, I just had some and it didn't taste sour to me. I said, did you smell it? She goes, yeah, it smells okay to me. I thought, why is my sense of sour milk a little more refined than hers? Oh, I grew up on a farm where we had milk cows. I mean, we didn't sell milk. We just had enough cows to keep enough milk, so we got our own milk from the cows. And we'd milk them and then put it in the refrigerator and then use it. And then what happened when it got old and turned sour? Does anyone know what farmers do with that milk? We put it out for the chickens to eat, and you would think that you just gave them a high-powered dessert. They just go nuts over that stuff. I'm just telling you. And then those chickens would eat it and give us some eggs. So I grew up with eggs, bacon, and milk, and we never had to pay for it. We just got it from our farm. Which my wife says, that's the difference between growing up on a farm and in a city. On a farm, it doesn't matter how poor you are, you still eat well. In the city, everything you eat, you have to go to the store and buy. I'm going, no, not everything. Couldn't you raise a garden? But you're not going to get eggs, and bacon, and milk out of your garden. That comes from having a farm where you get stuff that way. Okay. So let's talk about your sense of taste. If your olfactory mechanisms gross you out, then obviously the picture on page 119 is going to gross you out too. So we won't even read how the tongue works. Well, maybe this one little part here. The flavor of food arises from a complex combination of taste and smell. If you hold your nose when you eat, most of the food's flavor disappears. So most of what you call the flavor of food is really the smell of food. But you'll still recognize the basic taste qualities, and they are sweet and sour, salty and bitter. But all those other kinds of aromas that you smell that add to what we call taste, it's really smell. And then the receptors are the taste buds. They're on the tongue, and there's a picture of it on page 119. And where are all those taste buds?
On the tongue.
On the tip of your tongue or the back of your tongue? So that means some things you won't taste till you get it in the back of your mouth, and it's too late to do anything about it. Now that it's already there, it's filled your mouth up with that taste. Salty or bitter or sweet or sour. I think some taste buds are on the tip of your tongue, because you can touch it out there. Probably sweet and bitter might be out there on the tip of your tongue. Page 120, sensing motion. Now see, I can do this up here. I can just move back and forth, and I'm sensing motion. You want to stand up and sense motion for a minute, just for the fun of it? Stand up and sense motion. Just stand up and go back and forth. Just stand up and go back and forth. and sense the motion. Do you notice how your feet are part of sensing the motion? Now close your eyes and go back and forth. Whoa, whoa. And what's happening there? What's keeping me from, see, if my eyes are open, visually I don't go too far. Close your eyes and do it again. But you better have something else working for you. The feel in your feet and the liquid in your inner ear. That keeps you from going too far with your eyes closed. Okay, that's enough of that. We can all sit down. What in the world? The people online, you missed out on a beautiful picture. I wish I could have turned the camera around. It was so cool. I could have watched that all day long. So here we are, driving to the airport, getting in an airplane. How fast does that airplane fly going from here to Chicago? How many miles is it to Chicago? 400 miles? How long does it take the plane to get there?
An hour?
An hour? Do the math. That means that airplane was flying how fast?
100 miles.
At least 400 miles an hour. Probably more like 500 or 600 because of the time when you get on the plane and get off and all that kind of thing. Whoa! 400 miles an hour? So you get to Chicago, you get off the plane, you get in your car or a rental car, and you start to leave the airport. And this is so funny to me because I've been going 400 miles an hour. I get in the car and I'm not watching the speedometer and I just keep pushing on the gas, and what do I discover happens when I'm out there on the interstate? I'm going 70 miles an hour, 80 miles an hour out here. What am I doing? Your body got adjusted to that motion stuff, especially if you fly overseas, and it affects the way you sense motion when you get back in your car. They say never sit in a seat that faces backward. Have any of you ever done that? What did it do to you to sit in a seat that faces backward?
I felt a little faster than it probably was.
I've tried it and I don't like it. Somehow it just doesn't sit well with my sense of motion. I need to turn around the other way. Some children, some of these cars are built with seats facing backwards. They sit backwards, they get motion sickness real fast. And they get sick from it. Try to sit in the front seat and look at distant objects. If you want to make this sensation of motion less traumatic, open a window. And if necessary, a physician can recommend motion sickness medication. Have you any of you ever traveled someplace on a ship where they told you to bring some motion sickness stuff? Or did you ever get any to go on an airplane somewhere?
I've bought it for rides in the car.
What was it called?
The Dramamine.
You got Dramamine?
You can just pick it up in the store. You don't need prescription. But you
Did it work okay for you?
Yep. But you got to get the non-drowsy kind if you don't want to sleep.
Well, guess what? There's another kind on the shelf besides Dramamine. It's spelled B-O-N-I-N-E. Bonine. What? Did one of my ancestors invent a motion sickness tablet? How come I'm not getting any residuals from this? No, that was just the name they gave it. Had nothing to do with somebody's name. They didn't even think about that. They just gave it to them. So which came first? The family name Carpenter or the guy who does that to build things? Probably the guy who does that to build things. But I'm thinking we were around longer than the motion sickness stuff was. But the first time someone said they bought some Bonine pills, I go, what? They said, motion sickness pills. I didn't even know that there was anything like that. So I went to the store and sure enough, there it was. The skin census, oh, this is cool stuff. This skin census, okay, just hold your hands up. This won't be a stand-up thing. And just take your finger and your thumb, close your eyes. It always helps to accent. Close your eyes and rub them together. Wow. Is that cool? Now go to the next finger and see how that feels. Huh, that's a little different. The next one? Whoa, that one's kind of wrinkled. The last one, little pinky. What if I touch my 2 index fingers together? What do you think? Is that a cool sensation? Okay, now that you've been touching your fingers, touch your face. Touch the back of your hand. Close your eyes, it'll help you sense what's going on. Ooh, that back of the hand stuff is gross. Touch the tabletop. Now see, you can do it with your eyes open, but then close your eyes and see how it accentuates the sense of smell when you shut off the others. Now you know what? This tabletop, maybe, does this feel the same way? No, that one's slick. That one, this one's the roughest, this one's next, but this one here is really, I mean, this one feels, now watch, this one feels like I'm rubbing my hand across glass. And that's what I use for a comparison in terms of saying, but all of a sudden you go, here are 3 things right in front of me, and then the paper. Now you'd think, well, the paper will feel like glass. It doesn't. Rub your finger, close your eyes and rub your finger across the paper, and you go, what does that feel like? And what do we say? Feels like paper. Because we've felt that so much, we've just identified that, and it doesn't feel anything like that other stuff we touched. Does the paper in the book feel like the paper I have here? No, it's a little different, isn't it? Does your notebook paper feel just a little different than the paper in the book? Now, see what they say when they say we have a trillion different perspectives on something? It's like, wow, that's amazing that we can do that with our skin senses. And well, let's see. Our skin gives us all this fun stuff to do, and then our skin gives us our sense of pressure, temperature, and pain. Can you create a little bit of pain with, let's see, can you take your index finger and your thumbnail and can you push hard enough to create some pain in your index finger? So push real hard and see if you can make it really hurt bad. You go, I'm not going to do that. You can't lead me down that path. And then I look and I go, well, there's a crease in my index finger now. And the temperature, I walked in here this morning and I said, this room is stuffy. I don't even know what that means. I mean, if you said define stuffy, I couldn't, but I can tell you the room felt stuffy. You know what I'm talking about? We have labels for it. So I came over here and said, I'll turn on the air conditioner. And I thought, well, then that'll make it cold in here. No, it not only was stuffy, it was a little warm. Now, why does it feel warm to me, but it doesn't necessarily feel warm to all of you when I walk in here? I mean, like right now, is there anybody, okay, let's just talk about how this room feels to you. See, to me, it still feels a little warm, so I'm glad the air conditioner's going. How do the rest of you feel? Does it feel cold? Does it feel chilly?
No. I mean, it's not hot, but I'm not like shivering.
Okay. Can the rest of you describe how it feels to you?
It feels really
Warm? Cold?
Like slightly on the cool side, but
Slightly
like
on the cool
bearable.
side. What? Slightly on the cool side?
Yeah.
I'm comfortable. I like to be a little colder, so I don't really notice
So
it.
she calls it comfortable. A whole bunch of you call it a little cool. Is that why you wear sweaters and stuff and long sleeve things to class? Because us professors who's, you know what HVAC is? heating, ventilation, air conditioning. Hey, I've discovered something. As I get older, my HVA system malfunctions. It doesn't work like it used to. And I could probably make myself feel cooler if I didn't wear these long sleeve shirts to class. But you remember that thing I read about persuasion? Influencing people? It just happens that I personally think that for me, I have more influence in people's lives if I wear long sleeve shirts than if I wear short sleeve shirts. Now, when we go to our faculty training sessions, when I'm not in front of the students, I wear short sleeve shirts in the summertime. But when I start dressing professionally from my vantage point, I wear long sleeve shirts. And I have a friend who says, have you taken a class with someone who wears a tie every day of class still? We used to all have to wear ties because it was part of the dress code. Then they changed it and said you don't have to, and I go, wow, I'm glad for that. Because you can pay as much for a tie as you do for a shirt. So I just love this. But I found out that I'm inclined to wear long sleeve shirts. I just feel more comfortable teaching with a long sleeve shirt. So I just go to the thrift store and fill my closet up with them and say, hey, that'll work for me. Even if it makes me a little uncomfortable when I'm in class. Pain. What would you do without your sense of pain? You're walking along barefoot and you step on, I don't know, a tack. Without a sense of pain, you would just keep walking. And if the tack was in the middle of your foot, where you never had occasion to see it, you wouldn't know you had a problem until it got infected. And one day you're putting your sock on and your foot is all swollen and red. And you go to the doctor and he looks at the bottom and he said, you got a tack in here. I do? Yeah, and it's all rusty. It is? Yeah. How long have you been packing this tack around? I don't know. I can't feel pain. Well, then I guess you won't feel anything when I take a knife and cut all that dead stuff out of there where it's destroyed your skin. And if we're not careful, we're going to take your foot off too, because you're getting, what do they call that, gangrene or something? Can you imagine how much trouble we'd be in if we couldn't feel pain? I go home and put my hand on the stove and start talking to my wife, and I don't feel anything, but then I smell something burning. I'm going, what's that? Oh, it's my hand. I just toasted one side of it. And have you figured this out? If I toast one side of my hand, I'm going to lose my sense of feel and a lot of other things I can do with it. Be thankful for your sense of pain. Have you ever heard this? No pain, no gain. Have you ever heard that? What does that mean? Any idea what somebody means when they say no pain, no gain? If you're working out to get in shape, if you don't work hard enough to hurt a little bit, you probably aren't going to gain as much from the exercise. But because I can sense pain, if I step on a tack, what's the first thing I do? Ow! Something just punctured my foot. Can somebody look at this? And they go, yeah, you stepped on a tack. Let's pull it out. And when they pull it out, I go, ow! And then they go, you know, that's pretty serious. We better put some iodine in there. Have you ever had iodine put in a puncture wound? Well, it hurts as much as the puncture did. And what would they say to me when I was a kid? If we don't do this, you could get gangrene and lose that foot. Better take you to the doctor and get a tetanus shot so you don't get blood poisoning from it. On page 122, it talks about individual differences in pain. Do some of you have a greater tolerance for pain than others?
Yeah.
So, how is your pain threshold? Is it like you feel a little bit of pain and you have to quit?
Yeah.
No, she says, no, bring it on. I can handle that. And it just seems to be, and all of you said, yes, a little bit of pain, doesn't take much. Probably if we had a meter up here and we could have you put your hand on it till it starts to hurt, you understand your pain thresholds would vary for every one of us. And it's just kind of the way God put us together, the way we're wired. So don't get all bent out of shape about it. On page 123, it talks about people doing things to treat pain. Actually, okay, if I have a headache, what do you think? Is my body telling me there's something wrong? So should I figure out what's wrong or just take a couple of aspirins to get rid of the headache? You understand? The 2 aspirins won't necessarily fix what's wrong. They'll just take the pain away. Be careful about being so quick to go to something that will relieve the pain. If you do something you haven't done for a long time, well, if you just went someplace, if you went to Worlds of Fun and walked a lot more than you normally would walk, or rode some roller coasters, who wants to get on a machine that makes you go so fast it scares you and then beats you up while it's doing it? And then you go, you know, I hurt a little bit. Maybe I'll take some kind of pain reliever. No, probably ought to let the pain remind you that it's going to take a few days to get over this, so be careful. Your pain is kind of like an indicator of let's take it slow till we get to feeling better. So don't be so quick to take medication to deal with pain. Perception. Now remember, this chapter is on sensation and perception. And the sensations are all these senses that come at us. Perception is basically, what did they say that was up front? It's attaching meaning to the raw data that comes into our system. So, I come in here and I say, it feels stuffy. That's my perception. I say, we need to circulate some air, so I turn on the air conditioner. And then it just kicked off, so that means it's cooled it down to a certain temperature. If I'm okay with it, I'll just leave it there. So in other words, my perception is that it's okay in here. I mean, I'm a little warm, but that's okay. I just know I'm going to be warm. If I turned it down to make it so cold in here that I was really comfortable, probably all of the people who aren't wearing sweaters would be chilly. So it's like, let's just leave it be, and we both kind of give a little bit. It's perception. And when I talk about how you feel about this, we each had our own perception. It happens that this book likes to do a lot of image perception stuff, which is really cool, because you look at those 2 pictures at the top, and you see the difference between a close-up of a painting on the left and the entire painting from a distance on the right. And what's your perception? That artist needed to get glasses because he didn't paint a very clear picture? It looks kind of fuzzy to me. Or is it something wrong with my vision? Page 126. Is that box full of random dots, or is there a puppy in there? Is there a puppy in there?
Yeah.
Well, there's half of one. No. You say, I see the head and the front shoulders. Well, maybe that's all they put in the picture. Is it? No, they put the rest of it in there. You just have to look harder to see it. You see the right leg, then you see the left leg. You say, I don't see all the left leg. But now watch this. This is so cool. Okay, I see the head and the mouth and the front shoulders very clearly. Do you? So watch what happens. Since I know it's a Dalmatian dog in there, you understand what my mind does? It fills in the rest of it when I start looking for it. It helps me see what's there even if it's not there. Do you see that little critter on that leaf? Have you ever seen a walking stick in real life?
Yeah.
Well, you've missed out. They are so much fun to watch them. They really do look like a twig. You wouldn't know it was a live animal unless you saw it move. On page 127, what have we got here? Do you see a circle full of devils or a circle full of angels? I don't see any devils. I just see a bunch of white angels. Well, that's because, Tom, in your mind, those white angels are just jumping off the page at you. Now that they say there are some black devils in there, now see, now what's happening is I'm looking at this and I'm trying to look past those angels. It's almost like it's an oval that has 3 dimensions to it, and I'm looking past those angels down into that deep, dark, black background. Whoa! And there's one of those ugly little black devils. Do you see him?
Mm-hmm.
And can you see? What goes on is that when you first look at it, now generally when you first look at it, you'll see one or the other. And since I've taught this class so many times, I've looked at this many, many times. But every time I still see those white angels. It must be I have an angelic perspective. I don't know what it is, but I have to look hard at seeing those little black devils. And I have to get close and kind of like I'm looking beyond the angels, just making my eyes go deeper into the picture. Do you see those 2 people in that vase? You can't call that a vase. That's a vase. Because it came from England. And if you get back and look at it, it looks like whoever made it a little crooked, didn't they? Well, they didn't make it crooked. Look at the black faces on the left side and the right side. Oh, it's a vase with the King and the Queen of England. Do you see that? Everybody see the little black faces on the side? Cool. Isn't that fun to mess with your head like that? Page 128. What's going on here? Most people would perceive these 7 lines as 3 pairs. And an extra line to the right because of the relative proximity of the pairs of lines. Well, how else would you look at it? Next one. Objects that are of a similar color, size, or shape are usually perceived as part of a pattern. We just kind of look for patterns. Most people would perceive the first figure vertically. Rather than horizontally. Oh, you mean because those dots are going up and down, up and down? And what are the dots doing in the other one? They're going both directions. Closure. We're inclined to overlook incompleteness in sensory information. Our mind kind of fills things in. So where none really exist, we tend to see a series of rectangles rather than a series of brackets. Continuity. Items that contain a pattern or direction tend to be grouped together as part of the pattern. In this figure, we tend to perceive a continuous wavy line crossing three square humps, even though the figure could justifiably be perceived as two separate lines. You go, what? Yeah, cover up the bottom of the top line, and doesn't that look like? And then cover up the top of the top line, and that looks like the one at the bottom. You follow what's going on there? That hurts. I mean, some things just hurt your eyes. Perceiving distance and depth. How far away? When you look out the window, how far away are those cars out there? What would you say?
200 yards.
20 yards?
200 yards.
200 yards? Let's say, I don't know. I don't know how far it is. Well, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So from here up here to the front of the room is about 10 yards. You go, what? I think so. Let me check. One, two. See what's going on? I mean, maybe I didn't step far enough, but here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, it's 10 yards probably from the back of the room up to the front. Used to be. I could just step those off because on the farm you had to measure distance. So I just had this sense about I knew how far to step to make a yard. And I could just walk through it. So now you know that's about 10 yards. So you start to develop a sense of depth, how far away things are. And you also have a sense of shape. Look at the bottom of page 130. Okay, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 doors there, right? But see the last one, it doesn't look like a door. I mean, it doesn't look like the first one, but the first one is a door closed, and the last one is a door that you run into when you're not paying attention and crack your nose. And fortunately, they helped you see it, perceive it, by putting the blue background for the opening where the door would be if you close the door. So look at that picture up in the corner on page 131. Do you recognize either one of those people? Do you recognize either one of them?
Yeah.
Which one do you recognize?
Bill Clinton.
Bill Clinton. He's in the light-haired guy,
Yeah.
and the dark-haired guy is Al Gore. Okay, cover up the hair. You go, that's disgusting. Cover up the hair, cover up the suit, just get from the chin up, and what happens?
They look the same.
It's the same person. We just made Bill Clinton look like Al Gore by putting dark hair on him. And a suit. That's disgusting. Look at that picture at the bottom. Does that look like a beach with pebbles on it? No, that looks like That looks like the shore of a lake with a big dam built out of a whole bunch of rocks. That's what it looks like to me. What's it look like to you? A lake with some big boulders? Or is it pebbles on a beach? It says in the picture it's pebbles on a beach. Fooled me. With that photograph, those ones in front so big, I just assumed all the rocks are big ones. Turn the page to page 132. Oh, the picture with the two trees in it. Which tree is bigger, the one in the front or the one in the back? Which tree is taller? They're the same? Yes, they are. They are the same. Locating where sound comes from. Anybody here wear glasses besides me? Do you remember when you went to get your glasses? They brought them to you and they put them on your face and they were crooked and they had to twist them around to make them fit to get the earpieces on your ears. Do you remember that happening? When they put my glasses on, they sit crooked like that and then they go, we have to bend them down. And I'm going, what's going on here? And I said, is there something wrong with me? And they said, yeah, the same thing wrong with everybody. Our ears are not symmetrical on our heads. One ear is just a little bit higher than the other. And that's why we can tell which direction the noise came from. Is that cool? Page 135 has some visual illusions. I guess they are. Are they? Are those two monsters in that picture the same size? I say no. Then I come over here and measure them. And it's 1, 2, 3, and it's, no way. 1, 2, 3 to the eye. 1, 2, 3 to the eye. They are exact. Those two monsters are the exact same height. You better take a piece of paper and measure it, because you say, I don't care what he says. He measured, he said it's 3. He's lying. The picture tells me clearly that one is bigger than the other one. It's an illusion. Those lines with the arrows going out like that and the ones going the other way, which line is longer? Does it look like the bottom line is longer?
Yeah.
It does to me. So measure it. Take a piece of paper, turn it sideways. 1, 2, 3 and 3/4. 1, 2, 3 and 3/4. They're the same size. I hate that. That's all there is to it. I just hate it. I hate it when people mess with me. And the picture on 136, I hate that one more than anything. You go, why? Okay, go to the top of that thing. There's water falling down, and it's running there, then there, then there, then there, and back down again. Water does not run uphill like that and then fall over the edge. Why would that artist do that to us? Page 137, cognitive style. As we mature, as we grow and develop, the longer we live, the more we develop a cognitive style. Has anyone figured out what my cognitive style is? From just listening to me talk in class? Anybody here in my math class? My cognitive style is pure mathematics. And that's neither better nor worse than any other cognitive style. We each have our own. personality. We'll get to that later on in another chapter. We better at least start chapter 4. What time does that say it is back there?
It's 9:21 right now.
Well, then we'll have to save chapter 4 for Monday. Because it's time to quit. So I can get to my other class on time. You have a good day.